Greetings and welcome to another edition of Pedal Shift Project. The Pedal Shift Project is a series of conversations, thoughts, and experiments on bicycle travel adventures. From tips and tricks to ideas on how to ride your ride, let's shrink the world by bike. Show notes and more are available at pedalshift.net/403, and you can email the show at pedalshift@pedalshift.net or text me at 202-930-1109 and check Pedal Shift out on all the socials as well. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 403rd edition of the Pedal Shift Project. My name's Tim Mooney. Thanks so much for joining. On this edition, Lake Ontario 2025, Part 1. Hey, look, touring doesn't always go as planned. Bike adventures don't always go as planned. You've been around maybe for a few of mine, and you know sometimes they go sideways at some point. Have they ever gone sideways before I've even pedaled a single pedal? Welcome to part 1 of the Lake Ontario 2025 tour. I'll just let it speak for itself. Good afternoon from Washington, D.C., the District of Columbia, my nation's capital. Should be the 51st state, but I won't get into that. The beginning of this trip is T-minus 2 days. I am here sitting on a Friday. I am packed. I have all of my stuff. And, I'm not going to lie, I have some concerns. I have one big concern, and so I'll just leave it at that. The one big concern that I have right now at this moment is, man, this is heavy. The 2 chargers alone, not that bad. Bulky, but not that bad. Man, carrying one of those batteries is a lot. It is heavy. I still haven't weighed it. I think a part of me doesn't want to weigh it. But my 2 panniers together are heavier, I think, than what I would call a heavy, full load ride. And I have zero, and I mean zero camping gear in there. I don't have a stove. I don't have a tent. I don't even have a sleeping bag. So what are my concerns? My concern is that this much weight was not how much weight I was carrying on the shakedown ride. The other concern with this is my range, of course, is effectively doubled or close to doubled by having 2 batteries, but with extra weight, it's not quite that much. So there's one concern. The other concern is I took a much closer look at the topography profile of the ride. And despite the fact that I'll be pretty close to a body of water, there's a lot of hills, especially early in the trip. You worry about the ups and downs with the heaviness of the bike, and me, because I have to come along for the ride too, that it's going to burn through this battery way quicker. And the range is not 140 miles on flats or like the C&O sipping battery along the way. It's going to burn it down much quicker. So these 90 and 100 mile days are potentially over the range of the 2 batteries together. Sorry, this is Mookie squeaking. I'm going to have to take this away from you, buddy. I'm sorry. Podcast. The worry that we have, of course, is that I run out of juice in a rural place with a very heavy bike, and I still have a lot of ups and downs to go. Yes, this is a mountain bike. Yes, it has a pretty climby gear, but still a heavy bike. And so at the end of a long day, that might be problematic. And yeah, so that's been on my mind a lot lately. Here are 2 things that have made me feel a little bit better. Number 1, Better World Club. Not sponsored, I pay them money, etc. This is an alternative to AAA. Now, I understand that AAA also has this bike functionality, and certainly the AAAs in Oregon and elsewhere, I know they do. Better World Club is an alternative. They don't lobby against bikes and pedestrians, which is the big reason why I use them over AAA. But they, in the U.S., it's very clear that they do pickups when you are on a bike if you have a mechanical. I emailed them and said, hey, you cover cars in Canada. Do you do bikes as well? And I got a very quick answer, less than 24 hours. The answer is yes, even though their materials are very specific about 50 states and don't mention Canada for biking, and they do that for cars. Apparently, the bike benefit also flows for bikes. That is a huge relief to me, because what that means is if I've got a cell phone signal, whether I'm in Canada or New York, I can get a ride for up to 30 miles. And I think that could be a really important thing. If I run out of juice, I consider that a mechanical for purposes of this, and that could get me moving again. And 30 miles, especially at the end of a day, which it presumably would be, it could get me to where I need to go. That's great. That's something I hope I don't have to do. Here's the other thing that I really am excited about. Do you remember way back in the Biking Brian episodes and how Brian's got this absolutely amazing setup? He's got an enormous battery. And if you recall, the larger your battery, the faster you can charge it. It's kind of battery mechanics, for lack of a better word, or the physics of electricity. I'm saying this all wrong, I know. I don't have as big of a battery as Brian. However, my newer battery has a faster charger. It has more amps than my original one that I purchased. And I am charging it for the first time all the way up to 100%. And I will tell you, at least between 50 and actually, why don't we just walk on over? Why don't we walk on over and figure this out? Because I am curious. It's been charging for maybe a half hour at this point. And it's gone from 50 to 66%. Okay, well, maybe that's not super impressive. But what that does mean is that I can get, if necessary, if I have an hour or even two with a regular old outlet somewhere, someplace, I can charge up that battery faster, I think, than I'll call it older battery, but the battery that you went on a ride with me with. So what does that mean? It means that when I stop for lunch or any kind of a break, if I get someplace where I've got the ability to charge, I should do it. The other things that I'm going to utilize this battery as my primary battery, because again, what am I going to do? When I get to a break spot, and if I'm going to take any kind of a substantial break, I will pop this out of the bike, I will put it in the charger, and I will charge it while I am waiting. And so I will end up going to the second battery for that next portion of the ride, and I can ride that thing all the way down to nothing. And then I've at least added some capacity to the other battery. And it's a faster charge. So that's going to be, I think, how I approach things. What that means is that I have the ability to extend my range. I can do it when I charge a little bit faster. And I will make sure I treat this sort of like how I think many of us treat water. When you have access to water, what do? You fill up your water bottles. When I have access to electricity, what am I going to do? I'm going to try to fill up that battery, especially if it's for a longer sit down. And what that also does is it forces me to take a longer break, which I historically don't tend to do. I think that's going to be one of my strategies for this, because again, I do not want to be at the end of my day running out of battery and still facing 15 or 20 miles, God forbid, of up and down hills. That's what day 2 could conceivably be like. It's above 80 miles, and it's the most hilly day by far of all of them. It's a lot of up and down. And so I do expect that's going to burn down these batteries. So you know what? I'm going to approach this in a smart way. Day 1 is going to be hilly. It is a fraction of the length. It's not as hilly in the first part. It's going to be very hilly in the second part. So I'll be able to assess how much am I burning down this battery as I go along. The shakedown ride was really informative, but I think that the first day in particular is going to be even more informative about how I can approach this ride. What else do I have going into here in part 1? Man, I'm excited for this ride. I'm really looking forward to things. I have so many great places that I'm staying. I think some of the highlights of this is actually where I'm going to be staying in a bunch of different nights, with a couple of exceptions. And of course, I'll share those in the specific parts when we get to them. But I'm going to just be enjoying the heck out of that. But I do have to say, the nervousness that I've got going into this is as high as any tour I've had, because things can go so sideways. And I just don't know how that's going to go. But I think I've described to you that I'm at least ameliorating my nervousness by some things that I can do in the in-between elements. Of course, there's still the things that I talked about in the preview show where the chain, the bike itself, the brakes, all that other kind of stuff, those are still all question marks. I'm going to do the best I can with all of that. And of course, there's bike shops along the way. There's going to be places where I can go. That's going to be something I need to figure out. When I put my bike into my vehicle, and I don't know if I've mentioned this, I have a new car. I have a Toyota RAV4 plug-in hybrid, which is very exciting. There's some interesting things that I'm going to be able to do with this later this summer, which may or may not be a part of the pod, but they certainly will involve camping. It is larger than the Jeep that I previously had access to. And now I found that I could get a bike like this into the Jeep without too much of a hassle. It was a little bit of a hassle. I did have to take off the front wheel, which, of course, we all know. When I put it back on, will the brakes holler at me? Who the hell knows? We'll just have to figure that out. The other thing that I learned, and this is file under dub, but I thought was really handy, and I'm going to mention this for those of you who are trying to put a bike into a vehicle because you don't have a rack. I don't have a rack for this vehicle yet. I turned the handlebars 90 degrees. And you know what? That just makes life a lot easier. And it's super easy to do. It's like you loosen a couple of things up at the top of I guess that's the head tube there. And you just rotate it and then tighten them back up so it doesn't flop around. And boy, it lies much flatter and it's much easier to get things in and out of a car. It wasn't perfect, but it got in no problem, which I thought was really handy. So a little pro tip for you there. So here we are, a couple of days before. I am obviously driving to New York tomorrow, and then I'll be starting my ride the next day. And there's, like I said, a nice mix of excitement about what this ride is and what it can be. This is easily the biggest ride I've done in a while. I guess the Oregon rides have been pretty big. Because this is so half-dashedly, is that even a word? Because I haven't planned this ride to the bone like I usually do, there's some real question marks. Like, I'm really unsure how this is going to go. But that, I guess, is part of the excitement for me as well. You non-planners, here I am. I'm one of you. I'm one of you now. And the question marks about the bike. I think that if this goes the way that I hope it will go, I am going to have so much more confidence in this bike, and that's going to be really key to unlocking how comfortable I feel about doing really long mile days. I will be breaking a personal record. I have one day that, as scheduled, will be 104 miles, but it'll be in Canada, so I'll have to convert it into kilometers for all you all. But that's going to be a big day. And the first the first 3 days will inform whether that 104 mile day is going to be possible. I think it should be, because it is a substantially flatter day. It is much more like the terrain on the C&O. So with 2 batteries, I think that I should have no problem whatsoever. But yeah, we'll save that for part 4 or whenever it's going to be. But I think that the confidence in this bike will grow so long as it behaves. And I think that's going to be really important too. One thing that I'll say before I kind of wrap things up here about an e-bike, especially one that you build, I have been reluctant to take it into a shop because I've heard lots of shops won't touch custom-made e-bikes. And I think I need to get over that. Now, if I need a bike shop, I'll roll it right in and just be like, hey, you're my only hope. Obi-Wan, you're my only hope thing. But it'll be very interesting to see what ends up happening when I do bring this bike in eventually for some service, because it's going to have to happen. I'm just not good enough to be able to do some of the things. I'm going to try to learn and do more. As I did just to build it, I expanded my abilities. But that's going to be a really interesting thing. But I'm really hoping that this bike proves itself. It got excellent reviews by mountain bikey people. Burn Peak, I think is the guy's name, down in North Carolina, was raved about this bike. So I've improved a whole bunch of things. I, of course, got better tires on this and all that other kind of stuff. So we're just going to have to see how this all goes. But As I sit here right now, I have got that good mix of nervousness and anticipation, which honestly is the whole reason why we do this, right? All right. Well, I will check in again with you perhaps one more time before we start rolling, but just wanted to give you the post preview episode preview of where I'm at and how this first day is going to go. Good morning from a chilly but very beautiful day here on the shores of Lake Ontario in Western New York at my start point, the soon-to-be former home of my mother and formerly my father. And this is the spiritual beginning and end point here. We are, if it sounds a little echoey, it's because the home is empty. It has been sold, and it is a strange thing to be in an empty home. It was interesting because I wild camped in here. There's no furniture, so I brought camping stuff for here, only here, because it's all roofed lodging, as I've mentioned, for this trip. But it was interesting to be effectively in my camping gear in the room that I typically stay in. So sunrise here is at about 5:30, which was very early for me. I didn't get to bed till midnight, so not the best amount of sleep to kick off a tour, but that seems to be pretty typical for my day ones. I find that I don't get a ton of good sleep, but I think enough, and it's about 7-ish now. Yeah, it's a little after 7 right now. So I am going to do the following. My bike is largely packed up. I did do that last night. One of the reasons why I was up till midnight was I was handling a whole bunch of things around that. I think it's in pretty good shape. It seems to have survived the transportation up here without too much of a problem. I was able to put the front wheel, I should say, and the brakes were perfectly aligned, so that's good. Everything seems to be all right. I lubed up the chain and shifted it around a little bit, and it seems to be fine. I have 2 very full batteries. They are both at 100%. Today is the shortest mileage day of them all at 62 miles. I'm going to Oswego, New York. And that is going to be, I have 2 different ways of going, at least in the beginning. And I'm going to take the flatter route. I'm going to be on Ridge Road. There are a lot of ridge roads in this part of the state that basically are on ridges for a good reason why it's called Ridge Road. And the good thing about that is that those are going to tend to be pretty flat, or flat-ish. They're not going to be a lot of up and down. And the reason why I'm going to do that is because my other option, which is Lake Road, which I am actually right on right now, can be a lot hillier. The bummer is that I'm going to miss out one of the sites, but I've been there before, and that is Ginna Nuclear Power Plant. Ginna is spelled Ginna. One of the many things in Western New York where you're like, yeah, that does not sound like it's spelled. I feel like we do that a lot around here. It's a nuclear power plant shortly after, I think, the 3 Mile Island situation back in the early 80s. And look that up if you don't know it. It was a nuclear power plant problem. Accident? We'll call it an accident. There was a much more minor one here at Ginna. And so, of course, we always like to have our own local things. But anyways, that's my memory in childhood. So this is the Western New York disaster tour also, because my intention is hopefully to get to Love Canal as well, which is another issue. Again, we'll be talking about that in many weeks down the line for you. In any event, I am going to probably be missing out on that. I am going to do a quick flyby, since I'm going to be taking this route, of my mother at her place. And I saw her last night really briefly. I will see her again this morning. Hopefully I'll catch her after breakfast, and that's an open question. But even if she's at breakfast, I can at least swing by and say hello. It would be silly for me not to. I'll be really close by, so I'll do that. And then we will get rolling. And the name of the game here today is discovery. The shakedown ride obviously gave me a really good sense of what's possible on flats. Today is going to be how robust of a battery charge can I maintain through up and down hills, because the latter 30-ish miles or so is a lot of up and down hills. I expect that the batteries will be very impacted by that. And I'll be able to figure out, okay, how impacted? Do I have to worry about things tomorrow? And we'll cover that in the part 2, of course. But in any event, I am feeling pretty good. I've got some breakfast that I'm going to eat. It being not even quite 7:15 yet. I'm going to caffeinate up a little bit, get a few calories in me. I do have some good snacks. I'm going to be enjoying those as I work my way through the morning. And then I'm going to try to figure out, probably before I leave here, a good lunch spot. And that's probably going to be in the town of Sodus, or maybe one of the next towns. What I'm looking for is probably a cafe or even a fast food place, because again, what I want to do is I do want to see if I can charge up the what I'll call now the primary battery. It is a smaller battery compared to the other one, but it is the one that can paradoxically charge faster because it comes with a higher amp charger. And it was really noticeable charging the other battery, the older one, the original one that I bought, the larger one. It charges slower because I have a slower charger for that. So last night when I was charging, it took, if you could just tell, it took maybe twice as long. I think it's a 2 amp charger and the other one's a 4 amp charger. So, I mean, there you go, double, right? So yeah, I do think that's probably the right play if I've got range anxiety, and something that I may have. I just straight up may have. So yeah, a lot of packing and unpacking will have to happen, because just for weight distribution purposes, of course, I have to put the battery at the bottom of the pannier. So at these lunches, when I do this, I'm going to be pulling everything out of one particular pannier. And of course, what is it? It's clothes, because of course, right? Because I'm trying to keep that stuff on the light side on that pannier. It's going to be interesting. I don't think I'm as heavy as I thought I was when I went through my 15-minute preview, which was just a few moments ago for you. It's fine, but I have a renewed concern, and that is I have lived a very charmed life, and I hope I'm not speaking this into reality, but my rear wheels have rarely had problems with weight. And I know for many people, they will have problems with their rear tires, where they're not touring tires, for carrying too much weight on them. And it is now my sudden concern, because this is a mountain bike and this is a lot more weight than what it's designed for. So that's going to be the thing that if anything happens on this tour that's going to be semi-catastrophic, it would be losing a spoke, popping a spoke, something along those lines. So I'm going to be crossing fingers on all of that my great fortune in bike adventuring continues. And we'll just see how some things go sideways on these tours. But yeah, there's something about being a bike that is outside of its original design parameters, and using it outside of those design parameters. So it's always an adventure, isn't it? Well, the sun is coming out, which I think is great. And I think that warming up, this is the coolest day I think I'll have until probably next week. Or actually, it is next week. Today is a Sunday. I keep forgetting. Later in the week. So I think that that will end up being fine by me. In fact, I don't mind a little bit of cloud cover on a day like this, because I know that if you start chilly, you'll end up warming up. And frankly, I'm going to be wearing a rain jacket as my kind of outer layer, but I wouldn't be surprised if I end up peeling that off, maybe even at my mom's place, and just end up riding with one layer on. I could totally see that happening. That happens pretty frequently in temperatures like this. So, and it is a black layer as well, so if there is a little bit of sun, it'll warm me up a bit. I think that was in one of the spring break episodes I can't remember, was that the YOLO tour? I can't remember. In any event, yeah, so I'm feeling good. I think that I will feel much more, I don't know. I think I'll slide into the fun part of this tour really quickly once I get riding and once it's comfortable. But there are just so many question marks about this bike still, and we're just gonna have to see how it goes. I mean, I have every intention of not being stranded at the side of the road. It just is part of the possibilities that are out there when you do these types of things. So I have a cell phone. I will make it work. We'll figure it out, right? But hopefully all of this doom and gloom that you are hearing from me is all for naught. And all you're going to hear is, wow, what a great view, or wow, I'm tired, and wow, I'm really nervous about this battery, but I think I'll make it. Hopefully it's going to be more like that kind of stuff rather than disaster. I have broken 4 spokes and my bike is immovable and I have no cell signal. All right, well, yeah, I'm going to have some breakfast and maybe stop thinking so negatively. More to come. All right, so we haven't even left yet. The electric motor is not working, which is a problem. And I don't know what else to do. I can't even get into the menu of this thing. It was working fine before I left. This is so awful. I'm concerned. I'm using the new battery. I did use the new battery at the cabin, and it definitely was kicking in. Oh, this is just awful. I'm just trying to get into the menu. It's showing an error of some type, and I wish I were better at understanding this. But yeah, I'm just trying to repower it back on and off and seeing if that helps. But yeah, I can't even get to the menu, which means it's entirely possible that this bike is not, that there's something wrong with this. And I didn't bring the cable to hook into the operating system of this because I didn't think I would need to. I mean, I just had no indication that there was a problem. I'm thinking, okay, is it the battery that's an issue, even though it's clearly powering up the system, which creates another problem because like then we'd only have one battery that would work. I mean, at least I can check that out, but this could be the shortest trip ever when all is said and done. Remember when I said, oh, bummer, I have to pull out all of my stuff. Oh, that's the wrong one. Yeah, I got to pull out all my clothes now to be able to see if this is a thing. Okay, I'm going to power this down because clearly we have to try a different battery. Oh boy. Yeah, I was not even remotely thinking of this being an issue, but I guess I should have. That there could have been a problem with the motor scenario, which of course is just as bad as any mechanical for purposes of this ride. And yeah, that is a huge problem. And I have tried turning the battery off and on, and I've done a variety of things around that. Now, this was something that I was a little concerned about. This is just absolutely comical what's happening right now, and not in a good way. I had a bad feeling about this. I think you guys could figure it out as I was talking. I had a bad feeling. Let's see what we got here. All right. Get this battery, the second battery on. All right, let's just see what happens here. It fires up, and I'm getting the same error code, or same error indicator. I'm just gonna see if I can ride this. Yeah, I'm not sure what I'm gonna do. I really don't. I'll have to clearly go through all of my reservations. I made so many reservations. Oh my gosh. Yeah, if this e-bike is not e-biking. Yeah, the e-bike is not e-biking. Okay. It won't even let me get into the menu. Okay. All right. I think I'm going to have to radically rethink this entire tour because I have no way of figuring out what the problem is. I'm getting an error code from both batteries. All connections seem to be fine. The controller's fine. Like, everything's going into the motor fine. Wow. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. I am going to try to figure out alternatives here. If I completely strip off batteries and things like that, this bike is certainly rideable and maybe even enjoyably rideable, but I am not capable of doing the ride as planned without e-assist. It's just not possible beyond a sufferfest. So I think, because bike touring is all about fixing things in the moment, plan A, as I think of it right now, I am standing in front of my car. My car can hold my bike. And plan A would be that I would drive to each of these wonderful destinations and stay at these destinations and then bicycle doing day trips around those destinations. That would be fun. And that would certainly give some kind of credence to this around Lake Ontario situation. I would completely change things up and go completely acoustic. It's just that I don't have enough time for that. I definitely don't. Oh, I will be doing this acoustic, actually, as I stand here and talk about this. So we're riding the e-bike acoustic until I can maybe figure out how to fix this. The only issue will be that I'll have my vehicle at that point. I could take all day today to try to figure out how to fix this, but I have no idea what's wrong. I'm just trying to think what I would do back at the cabin. I think I would undo and redo every connection. I think I would get into the back end of the thing and see if there's anything that's popping up. Boy, this would be really disappointing if this thing is bricked. After all of the investment into it and the investment of time. And I just wonder, did anything get damaged on the ride up here? The bike didn't have any kind of an issue like that. Just looking at everything. You would think that if there was a connection that was off, that the screen wouldn't power up, but it also isn't going to the menuing, which is also, just strikes me, something's wrong. Something is terrifically wrong at the moment, and I don't know what that is. Okay, all right. I am going to assume that I could spend hours on this and not come up with a solution, because this is at the edge of my capabilities anyways. Maybe at some point I'll be able to figure this all out. But the preview episode, the episode that you listened to, never mind. Never mind. What we are now going to do is we are going to, I think, make this into a day trip with motor vehicle situation. Now I have to figure out, do I have the stuff to make that happen? Of course I do. There's no reason why I couldn't do that. This is now the new element of this ride is coming up with a ride within a few minutes. Now, the other thing is that I've got plenty of time. What I would like to do is set some kind of parameters of how much riding I would like to do per day. And then maybe in the evenings, I can figure out, maybe, to see if I can get this thing back to e-bike mode. In which case I would ride it as an e-bike. But yeah, it powered down by itself just now. Which it does, I think, when it's inactive. And I powered it back up and it still has that error code. Which I can't remember. The other thing is that I don't have the guide that came with it that would tell me what that... By the way, I should explain what the error code is. It's in orange, because of course, circle with an exclamation point in it. Those are rarely good. That is the international symbol for you effed me. What I'm now going to do is grab my charging cable for my car, a vehicle that does charge. Well, this charges, it just doesn't work. Yeah, I think instead of an e-bike, I'm going to be utilizing my electric hybrid. And I think I'm going to do some wonderful day trips. I have some research to do about 2 points. Number one, can I get to Wolf Island with this vehicle and keep that reservation? Can I find a reasonable place to park my vehicle in the city of Toronto or nearby? Probably, I'll bet you I can park nearby Toronto overnight and still do the island. Yeah, I don't see any reason. I may incur some parking fees as a part of all of this in some of the places that I'm going to. Like, I think Niagara Falls, it's like $40 to park there or something like that, which is outrageous and silly. And maybe I rethink that, although it's got a falls view and everything. It seems cool. And the other thing is that there would be a place... Sorry, I'm thinking out loud, or I'm talking as I think, and so I'm coming up with things to say no to already. But I think that this is what the tour is going to have to be, at least for now. And then that way we still have a podcast, we still have adventures. I would really be disappointed if I couldn't do this kind of sleeping in the house where my dad passed, and that this was a piece for that. I think I'd be very disappointed if I couldn't do something along the lines of this Lake Ontario memorial thing. So I'm gonna make do. So that's option one. Option two would be scrap that and do a ride and see if I can undo all of my reservations. I know I'm fairly certain that some of them I'd have to eat, and then do an acoustic ride on the Erie Canal towpath, but that doesn't feel as good. Also, I don't have any of my camping equipment. So I think we're doing roof lodging. If we're going to do roof lodging anyways, and I've got my vehicle, I think I'm leaning towards this. None of you are able to hear this in the moment. But I think that at least I'll still get something. And I'm incredibly disappointed right now, like really disappointed. And maybe I'll be able to figure something out with this. But I just feel like the clock's ticking right now. It's almost 7. Is it 7:30 or it's got to be later than that? Yeah, it's 8:30. I just feel like with the clock ticking, I think it's time to make the call on this. So again, preview episode, scrap that. Maybe someday. Maybe if I can get this thing working. I hope that I can. The bummer is that I have no one I can go to for this. No one at all. I got to figure this out myself. So maybe I'll do that, and I can utilize some ChatGPT and maybe some Googling to figure out what the situation is, and then just go from there. So in the interim, I am going to pack up my car. I'm going to pack the bike up in the car, and I'm glad that I was able to figure out how to do that pretty easily. I'm trying to remember if there's anything in the house. If there's anything left in the house, there's one bag. I think I may just grab whatever I brought, make sure that I've got it with me. And then we're just going to go see my mom for a little bit. And then next you'll hear from me will be the final decision making on this, the brand new Lake Ontario 2025 tour, aptly named, because Lake Ontario is a part of it, but what is it going to be? Someone knows, and it's not me. All right, more to come. Statistics. Miles biked, 0. Borked ebikes, 1. Flats, 0. Folks, it gets better. Trust me.
Thank you for joining. You can find Pedal Shift at pedalshift.net for more great bicycle touring content. You can hear the Pedal Shift project through Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast app. Opening music courtesy of Jason Kent off his self-titled album. The track is called America. Check out his band Sunfield's latest release, Mono Mono, wherever cool music is available.